The world is in chaos, but you haven't seen its darkest side.
Welcome to Mr. Mask, folks, where we unpack the stories shaking the world. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a huge moment in the Russia-Ukraine war. Peace talks kicking off in Istanbul. That's right. After 3 years of Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II, Russia and Ukraine are sitting down to swap plans for ending this brutal war. But hold on, this comes hot on the heels of Ukraine's boldest attack yet on Russian soil. Let's break it down. Picture this. It's Monday, and negotiators from Moscow and Kyiv are gathering at the stunning Saragan Palace, a former Ottoman gem turned five-star hotel on the Bosphorus. The clock strikes 1 p.m., and the second round of talks begins, pushed hard by U.S. President Donald Trump. These are the first direct negotiations since Russia's invasion in 2022, and the stakes, sky high. Last month in Istanbul, they pulled off a big prisoner swap and agreed to share their peace visions. Now, Russia's dropping a memorandum of its terms, while Ukraine's demanding action first. But folks, these two sides, they're still worlds apart. Let's talk Ukraine's big move. Just yesterday, Kyiv pulled off a jaw-dropping strike, damaging 40 Russian strategic bombers, worth $7 billion, at air bases thousands of kilometers behind the front lines. Ukraine's security service says this 18-month operation involved smuggling drones into Russia, then launching them right near the targets. Talk about a power play. But Russia's hitting back hard, advancing in Ukraine's Sumy region to create a buffer zone and launching ballistic strikes in Kharkiv that injured 6, including a 7-year-old kid. This war is far from quiet, folks. So, what's on the table in Istanbul? Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky laid it out Sunday. Step 1. An immediate ceasefire, no strings attached. Step 2. Free all prisoners. Step 3. Bring home Ukraine's abducted children. And here's the kicker. Zelensky wants a face-to-face with Russia's Vladimir Putin, saying only the leaders can crack the toughest issues. But the Kremlin's not biting, insisting on wider agreements before any Putin-Zelensky showdown. Moscow's even questioned Zelensky's legitimacy, pushing for him to be ousted. Russia's demands? They're swinging big. Curb Ukraine's military, block NATO membership, and hand over massive chunks of territory. Kyiv and the West call that a non-starter, slamming Russia's invasion as a naked land grab. Tens of thousands are dead, millions displaced, and eastern and southern Ukraine lie in ruins. The fighting rages on, with Russia's troops pushing in Sumy and Ukraine refusing to cede the 1/5 of its land under Moscow's control. Who's at the table? Russia's sending Vladimir Medinsky, a Putin loyalist who's justified the invasion in school textbooks and questioned Ukraine's right to exist. Ukraine's countering with Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, a sharp negotiator but tangled in domestic scandals over power abuse. And they're not alone. Diplomatic advisors from Germany, France, and Britain are on the ground, backing Ukraine's team. The West's watching closely, folks. Now let's zoom out. These talks are a flicker of hope, but the gap between Russia and Ukraine is massive. Ukraine wants a ceasefire to even start talking long-term peace, plus ironclad security guarantees like NATO protection or Western troops, ideas Russia flat-out rejects. Moscow's pushing for Ukraine to ditch Western military aid and surrender territory, while Kyiv says it'll only reclaim land through diplomacy, not war. Trump's pressure is keeping this alive, but as we've seen, progress is slow and the war's escalating. Drones, missiles, and ground advances aren't slowing down. Why does this matter? This war's already killed tens of thousands, wrecked cities, and sent energy prices soaring globally. If these talks collapse, we could see even bloodier fighting, maybe pulling in NATO. But if they somehow find common ground, a ceasefire, prisoner swaps, or more, it could be a game changer. The world's on edge, and Istanbul's the stage.
The world is in chaos, but you haven't seen its darkest side.
Welcome back to Mr. Mask, where we slice through the world's biggest stories with precision. I'm your host, and tonight we're putting on our military analyst caps to unpack a seismic moment in the Russia-Ukraine war. Peace talks in Istanbul. But don't be fooled, folks. The battlefield's roaring louder than the diplomacy, and we're diving deep into this high-stakes chess match. Let's roll. We're zooming into Istanbul's Saragan Palace, a jaw-dropping Ottoman gem, where Russian and Ukrainian negotiators are facing off today at 1 p.m. for round 2 of peace talks, pushed hard by President Donald Trump. This is the first direct face-off since Russia's 2022 invasion, and it's a big deal. Europe's deadliest war since World War II hangs in the balance. Last month, they swapped thousands of prisoners, a rare win. Now, Russia's slapping down a memorandum of demands, while Ukraine's saying, "Show us action first." Spoiler alert, these two are playing on different boards, and the gap's a strategic canyon. Let's talk Ukraine's mic drop moment. Yesterday, Kyiv pulled off a stunner, crippling 40 Russian strategic bombers, $7 billion in hardware, at airbases thousands of kilometers behind the lines. Ukraine's security service calls it an 18-month op, smuggling drones into Russia and striking with surgical precision. Militarily, this guts Russia's long-range air power, hobbling their ability to pound Ukraine from afar. Psychologically, it's a slap, exposing Moscow's soft spots. But timing this right before talks? That's Kyiv flexing, showing they're not begging at the table, they're fighting. Russia's clapping back, and it's brutal. They're carving a buffer zone in Ukraine's Sumy region, with ground troops advancing and ballistic strikes hitting Kharkiv, wounding 6, including a 7-year-old. Sumy's push is about strategic depth, shielding Russia's border from Ukrainian raids like the Kursk incursion. Those Kharkiv hits? Classic attrition, targeting civilians and infrastructure to break Ukraine's spirit. Russia's saying, talks? Sure, but we're keeping the heat on. With 50,000 troops in Sumy, they're prepping for a long game, maybe a summer offensive if talks tank. Now the Istanbul showdown. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky's got a playbook. Immediate ceasefire, no strings, free all prisoners, return abducted kids, and a sit-down with Putin himself. It's a smart sequence. Halt the fighting to rebuild, rearm, and rally Western aid. That Putin summit pitch? Pure strategy. Zelensky wants to lock in deals and call Russia's bluff globally. But the Kremlin's dodging, demanding wider agreements first and slamming Zelensky's legitimacy. That's Moscow stalling, keeping talks low level to avoid real concessions while their troops grind forward. Russia's demands? A military power grab, slash Ukraine's forces, block NATO, and seize huge swaths of land, including the fifth they hold. Kyiv and the West say, no way, that's surrender. Russia's negotiator, Vladimir Medinsky, a Putin ideologue, pushes narratives denying Ukraine's existence. His presence screams Russia's not here to deal. They're buying time, betting battlefield pressure will crack Ukraine or the West. Ukraine's counter? Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, a sharp tactician, backed by heavyweights and Western advisors from Germany, France, and Britain. They're demanding a ceasefire to freeze the lines, then pushing for NATO-level security. Long shots, but it keeps the West locked in. Let's break down the battlefield math. Ukraine's bomber strike proves they can hit deep, but it's a double-edged sword. Russia's Sumy push and Kharkiv barrages scream retaliation. Both sides are in a drone and missile slugfest, bleeding resources and morale. Ukraine's holding 1/5 of its land under Russian boots, but their first raids and drone ops show they've got asymmetric bite. Russia's Sumy buildup hints at a bigger play, but if their elite units are stuck in Kursk, as Zelensky claims, their options shrink. This is attritional warfare, folks. Grueling, costly, and far from over. Strategically, Istanbul's a tightrope. Russia's hiding their memorandum to control the spin. While Trump's pressure keeps both sides at the table, Kyiv wants U.S. weapons. Moscow eyes sanctions relief. But Trump's holding off on new sanctions, giving Russia room to maneuver. The prisoner swap was a win, but without a ceasefire, it's a footnote. Turkey's pushing for a Putin-Zelensky summit, but with Medinsky's 21-year war talk, Russia's betting on endurance. The West's advisors signal Ukraine's not alone, but NATO's shadow looms. One misstep could escalate this to a global crisis. What's the endgame? Russia's got the edge in troops and cash, but Ukraine's drone strikes and Western gear, like Germany's new missiles, keep them in the fight. A ceasefire could pause the carnage, letting Ukraine regroup, but Russia's land grab and Ukraine's NATO dreams are oil and water. If talks crash, expect Russia to hammer Sumy in the east, while Ukraine doubles down on asymmetric hits. Energy prices, global markets, NATO's nerves, everything's on the line. So, Mr. Mask viewers, Istanbul's a pressure cooker, but the battlefield's still king. Can Trump's push spark a deal, or will Putin's grind bury the talks? Hit the comments. Is a ceasefire possible, or are we braced for more fire? Stay locked in. We're tracking every move in this world-shaping clash.